Many years ago, a man by the name of Dr. J. Allen Hynek developed a classification system for identifying different UFO cases. The one that I want to bring to you is called Close Encounters of the Second Kind. He developed first, second, and third kind. Second kind was more of the trace evidence. We heard Ted Phillips, whose mentor was Dr. Hynek. And I believe many of the researchers feel that Close Encounters of the Second Kind really have the strongest evidence to support the existence of the UFO phenomenon. Our next speaker specializes in just that. Brian BOLDMAN has researched extensively for over a decade the phenomenon that has now become known as angel hair. It's defined as a fine web-like physical trace residue associated with UFO sightings and has been reported for centuries. Multiple witnesses separated both geographically and I'm sorry, it's written wrong. The multiple witnesses across the world report the same exact thing. The angel hair data shows consistent patterns and correlations to the UFO data. The most logical conclusion is that angel hair is physical evidence for UFOs, and it deserves serious scientific study. So let me welcome to the stage Mr. Brian BOLDMAN.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Also, thanks to John Schuessler and the whole MUFON crew for inviting me out. I've had a great time so far. I hope you guys have. It's been a great conference. You can't hear me? Okay. I may need to move the mic up a little bit, I guess. Okay, how's that? Okay, well, again, thanks to MUFON for asking me out, and John Schuessler. And thanks for you guys for coming out and staying. I know a lot of people had to leave, and I understand that. But, you know, you have to do what you have to do. I am going to talk about angel hair. And what is it? Well, I can tell you a couple of things for sure. It doesn't have anything to do with pasta or angels. It does have to do with UFOs. You might say a working definition of angel hair is that it's a fall of an anomalous white substance that's generally has properties that are inconsistent with known physical specimens, such as spider web, which is what it's usually blamed on. Also, the Air Force blamed it on rayon residue from defective filters, factories that were spewing out stuff that shouldn't be, but it has very unusual properties. It's been known to be strong, tough to break, but then just dissolve to nothing, either after a few minutes, sometimes instantaneously, sometimes over hours or days. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you some history, and I'm going to go through some current, or some actually 20th century cases, and then some current cases. Regardless of what most people think, this stuff is still happening. Now, this is a fresco that was done by Masolino de Panicali, excuse me. According to legend, there was a pope in Rome, Liborio, that had a dream on August 5th, 352 AD, that a strange white substance would fall in Rome that would be considered a miracle. And he was instructed, supposedly, to build a basilica on the spot where this stuff fell. Now, if you look here, this stuff on the ground, okay, this guy with the stick, supposedly this white hair-like substance fell all over Rome, and this guy's actually physically scraping it with a stick, as you can see right there. As a matter of fact, they celebrate this every August 5th in Rome. They recreate the miracle of the snow, which is what this is called. And this is not a good picture. Well, actually, that's the basilica that was built on the spot. That's not a good picture, but what they do is from the balcony of the basilica, they throw white flower petals to simulate the falling of these flakes, the miracle of the snow. Now I'm going to get on into closer to the 20th century, or actually the late 1800s. I know a lot of you guys know who that is. It's Charles Fort. He's actually, I consider him to be the father of ufology. He actually spent 27 years going through the library of, the New York Public Library, and also over in the UK. He went through periodicals, science journals, and looked for odd phenomena that science refused to look at, such as UFOs. As a matter of fact, he has, or the library, New York Public Library Special Collections has little slips of paper. He was very eccentric. He wrote little notes on like 2 by 3 inch slips of paper that he eventually compiled into 4 books, one of them being Book of the Damned. And what he meant by the damned is the evidence that science damned or would not look at. And I went to the New York Public Library Special Collections, got permission, and went through his notes and actually found a few that were very interesting. This was actually about 2 inches by 3 inches, and of course you can't really, I think I've cropped off the edges, it's blown up, but you can see what it says there. 1897, if you remember the airship wave of 1897, this was his note, March 15th to May, the airship. But that's just to show you that he was indeed interested in UFOs. Now I'm going to get into where he recorded some anomalous falls of this fiber-like material. Okay, this is another one of his notes. 1820, about October 1st, silky substance, and that's, I know it's hard to read, Pernambuco, Brazil, annual register, and that's a citation in the annual register. Now, the D here is his stylized D, was his notation to include this in Book of the Damned, which he did. And I'll show you the annual register itself, a rain of silk. And what's interesting, oh, by the way, I have some of these documents I'm going to show you that are from Blue Book and some other archives are pretty poor quality, but I've got them all here. So if anyone wants to look at any of these documents, and I don't expect you to read them all, I've got them handy, so don't worry about that. But this shows you right here, the phenomenon extended to a distance of 30 leagues inland and nearly as many off the sea. So it covers huge areas sometimes. As a matter of fact, I've got a couple of cases where it covered thousands of square miles. Now, another case that he looked at, 1881, this happened in Wisconsin. Now, he has here spider webs. It was in Scientific American. There's a citation for that. Also, Book of the Damned. There's his D61. But in the Book of the Damned, he says it's curious that they didn't find any spiders in this stuff. You know, they'd written it off as spider webs, but he says, well, it's kind of odd. There was stuff everywhere, and nobody saw any spiders. So he was kind of confused about that. Okay, 1898, November 21st, again, Book of the Damned, cobweb, asbestos, Montgomery, Alabama. Remember that asbestos, that's important. Okay, now we're going to get into some more contemporary cases. Well, not really that contemporary. This is a Project Sign report. Let's see. Okay, this happened at 5:30 a.m. on August 29th, 1948. A farmer in Maplewood, Ohio, witnessed a large silver spear rise up behind trees on his farm. and discharged what he called a silver substance that disintegrated in midair. And it can't actually disintegrate that quickly. It doesn't even hit the ground. But here the Air Force has concluded it was spider webs. Now there's another page to this report though, where they actually state that the witness was, quote, very conscientious and sincere, but still they wrote it off as spider web, even though he claimed it was a large spear. Okay, I'm going to show you guys a couple of photos. Now these were hard to find. There are very few photographs of angel hair actually being deposited by UFOs, but there are some out there. This one here is a really interesting one. This was taken in Peru by Domingo Transco. He was a Peruvian customs inspector. This was taken July 29, 1952, near Puerto Maldonado, I think that's how you pronounce it, Peru. This was the only photograph he was able to get, and apparently there was some angel hair recovered, even though I haven't been able to find out who did and where it is if they did. He only got the one photograph. The craft was estimated to be going at 400 miles an hour, and if you look, I think it's hard to see, but there's a shadow right there. This is a river, by the way. This is a river. And that is supposed to be a shadow of this contrail of angel hair in the river. Okay, now the next ones are going to look weird. Okay, now I'll explain it when I show them to you. Okay, this was taken, this is one of two that were taken in Belgium by a Herman Shermain on May 16, 1953. This is the first of two. There were two black and white photographs that he'd taken. He described the object as bright metallic and circular. Now, it looks very strange, but we've been discussing plasmas. Plasmas have been coming up in UFOs for a long time here, and I have been told that this could actually be the effect of a plasma. If you look at the angel hair itself, the tree line seems to be fairly well defined, and the angel hair seems to be fairly well defined, but around the craft itself, there's a plasma sheath of some sort. Now, the second photo, this one also is, you're going to laugh when you see this. It looks like a smiley face. See that? It looks like a fried egg to me, you know. But you got the same stuff coming out. You got the tree line there. It was obviously taken at a slightly different angle. The camera was tilted a little bit differently, but that's what you got. And I have to thank Joe Fex for this. I just got this from him last week or so, and I've been trying to find this photograph for like 5 or 6 years. So thanks, Joe. Okay. Now, this is, I don't expect you to be able to read all this. I recently found these documents, and I just wanted to throw them in here to show you something. In particular, this is a NICAP report, angel hair, October 17th, 1954. And this was in Kankakee, Illinois. Now, what I want to show you about this, well, she says, one thing that's odd is most angel hair accounts have almost no noise is reported. I mean, like I got 3 or 4 of them. And she says here it was loud at first and then began to taper off. But here's what I want to show you about this. Well, first, she says that it made jets look like turtle. You know, I thought that was kind of funny. But up here in the corner, if you guys can read that, she says it left a green stain on her hands when she picked this stuff up. Now, just remember that. This is a Blue Book project record card. Marysville, Ohio. This is one of my favorite cases, and it's a fantastic one. This happened October 22nd, 1954. And basically what happened was, if I can get my glasses out here, I'm not going to be able to read without them, I don't think. October 22nd, 1954, over a schoolhouse. And there were about 60 students, a couple of teachers, and a principal. The principal's name was Rodney Warwick. Witnessed a bright silver cigar over the top of the schoolhouse. When this thing shot off, it left a tremendous trail of angel hair, and I'll get into more specifics about that in just a few minutes. Now, of course, Blue Book's conclusion, spider web or spider gossamer. That's their typical standard explanation besides rayon from faulty plant filters, that sort of thing. Now, in the Blue Book file, there's a letter from one of the teachers. Her name was Mrs. George Ditmar, and she was a minister's wife. And I'm going to read to you what she said about this. Okay. The children called him, the principal, Rodney Warwick, to come out to the fire escape quickly. He said he did so just in time to see a very shiny and silvery-looking cigar-shaped object high in the air above, which seemed for a split second to just hang and all of an instant take off at a terrific rate of speed out of his view over the top of the schoolhouse. The children all told us that for a second it nearly blinded them to look at it before taking off. Mr. Warwick told me it was almost at once, while he was standing there looking at the object, that he saw the white tufts drifting down. We handled this material. It was very fine and soft to the touch. It did not stick to our hands, but when we had two ends and pulled it, it stretched without tearing. Where it stretched, it had a shiny appearance. The part we held between our fingers very quickly seemed to go to nothing. In other words, it sublimated or dissipated. Now, this is what really impresses me, and it did her too. She says, to me, the real impressive and outstanding thing was, as we drove the 3 miles from our school over a country road to the Columbus Road, the telephone wires the whole distance were completely woven shut, just as if hands had carefully spread it out very evenly. Not only this, but the telephone wires were connected to the electric wires on the other side of the road, so that it was like driving under a misty canopy for the whole 3 miles. So what she's saying is that there were phone lines on one side of the road, power lines on the other side of the road, and this angel hair had draped across them for 3 miles. Okay, folks, that's a lot of spider web, you know. Now, okay, let's see where I'm at here. Okay. Not enough RAM, you know. Okay, this is, I'm not sure exactly what paper this was from, but you guys want to read that. It's really interesting because, well, right here, let's see, substance looked and felt like asbestos. We've heard that before. Okay, the substance disintegrated within a minute after being touched. Okay, there you go. It's all right there. This is classic angel hair. This is a classic case. But what's very surprising about it, and this is Rodney Warwick's statement to the Air Force. And again, like I said, I don't expect you to be able to read all that, but I've got these. You know, you can look at them later on. But it's the same thing. He says right there, the material was scattered in the general path of object. So he's saying that it was a UFO. The government's saying it's spider web. Well, let me show you. This is what he drew. That's kind of weird-looking spider web, I think. Completely silent and silver. And, of course, he said there were windows on it. And the thing shot off to the west. And here's another very interesting thing there. Let's see what that, before I go to that, I just put this slide in too. Eula B. Lewis. Oh, and by the way, I might mention this. If you'll notice, these are not blacked out. If you go to the National Archives, Narrow 2 at College Park, Maryland, they want you to go up to the 4th floor to the where the Blue Book records are kept on microfilm on 35 millimeter rolls. Well, let me tell you, you use those, you're cheating yourself because they're the ones that are all blacked out. There's a separate record group you can request to have them pulled from the stacks that are 16 millimeter, and they're not blacked out. All the addresses are on there. And of course, I've tried to find these people, and they're all dead. You know, this stuff happened in the 50s. But anyway, here, Mrs. Lewis had sent them a sample, And, you know, this is just a letter back to her telling her that they recognized that, you know, that she'd sent a sample and they have it. Now, here's another document that's not blacked out. This was from Thomas Olson. Okay, there's his name. And I'm going to go to an excerpt from this document in just a second, but I want to show you who sent this. This is pertaining to, he had asked about multiple cases here, so we don't need to worry about those, just this one right here. I'm going to show you that. This was sent to him by Hector Quintanilla and also CC'd to Dr. Hynek. Now here's the excerpt. Case 2 of 22 October 54, Marysville, Ohio, is definitely a spider gossamer. Notice the emphasis. Okay, but then he goes on to say, the sample forwarded to the Air Force by Miss Lewis had dissipated so that no analysis was possible. If it dissipated and they don't have it, how the hell do they know it's spider gossamer? Okay, it was kind of funny. I mean, sad too, you know. Now, same day that happened, 100 miles to the west, Union City, Indiana. I'll read you what the witness wrote in his report to the Air Force. Okay. Harry Yulee and his wife, okay, witnessed a bright, shiny object, which he estimated to be traveling at 1,100 miles per hour. Okay, he wrote to his congressman, Ralph Harvey. This is actually included in the Blue Book file. Immediately following the disappearance of the bright object, we saw in the direction of the spot where the fast-moving object had disappeared, dozens of objects floating in the sky. As we watched these dozens of objects floating toward the Earth, some came toward us, and one floated directly over our heads. A streamer-shaped object attached itself to the antenna of our TV set. As we watched it, it floated like a streamer in a horizontal position in a line with a TV beam between our antenna and Dayton. Okay. The Air Force here concluded it was a chaff drop. Same day, same time. Marysville, Ohio, 100 miles away at Spiderweb. Here's chaff. You know, that's another one they used a lot, was chaff. Okay. Now, I need to talk about the disappearance of this stuff. It's actually sublimation. And I guess a classic example of sublimation that most people would know about is dry ice. You know, if you set an ice cube on a counter, it's going to go to a liquid and then a water vapor. You know, it goes from solid to a liquid to a gas. When something sublimates like dry ice, it goes from a solid to a gas. And that's what angel hair does. It'll vanish either on contact with the ground or over time, or if you handle it. I guess the latent heat from your hand causes it to sublimate even quicker. So I just needed to get that clarified. Okay, back to this guy. This fell on February 29th, 1955 in Horseheads, New York. This is Dr. Charles Rutenberg. He was a chemistry professor at Elmira College. Now here, this is sort of atypical angel hair because it's generally snow white. And this had more of a grayish type of tint to it. It's also, you know, black and white, so it's kind of hard to see. But there was no UFO associated with this case. However, there was one very interesting aspect about it. It was radioactive. Now, this is not the only case. I've found two others. One happened in 1966, October 12th, in Johnson City, Tennessee. And this is another good case. Multiple witnesses observed over 50 silver white objects discharge a substance in sheets that fell and hung on trees, bushes, telephone lines. It was described as hot to the touch. This is the only case I have where this was described. And apparently the witnesses received burns or blisters, and some suffered nausea. Well, the FAA got called, and they came out there, and in the Johnson City Press Chronicle, this is a quote, "It had been reported that an FAA man had registered on a Geiger counter a silky-like substance emitted from the alleged UFOs." Well, it goes on. This stuff fell on a cow pasture, and the cows were in another part of the woods there or whatever. They refused to go into that pasture until it had rained several days later. Also, another case happened October 12th, 1976 in Sonora, California. There, UFOs were seen. It was actually this was a red oblong UFO, which is also atypical. It seems like that these very strange properties are associated with atypical UFOs, which may be an indication of another type of vehicle or from somewhere else. This was highly charged with static electricity, and we're gonna see that again in graphic detail here in a bit. Anyway, a Dr. David Militek examined this material in Sonora, and he described it as whitish, fibrous material of uniform composition, being quite fine with frequent branching and highly charged with static electricity. And he also took it to Reese Memorial Hospital, and they ran a culture on it to see if there was any bacteria present, and it was completely sterile. No bacteria. Okay, let's see. Now, the next case I've got here, this was the first case that I ever examined. This is what got me interested, because this happened 20 miles from where I grew up, in Whitsett, North Carolina. Tremendous case. The gentleman you see there, actually, there, it's better. The gentleman you see there is H.D. Lambeth. He was an aerial observer during World War II. He flew combat missions over Burma, and he had his wings. I mean, incredible witness. He told me that what he did, he was the school principal here. He had one child go into the school, bring him a chair. Another child go to his car and bring him binoculars. Because what they were seeing overhead were what he told me, he described them as stainless steel, ball-bearing looking objects. He told me that there were 8, just like domino dots. You know, you got 4 on one side and 4 on the other. They were just lined up like that, and this angel hair was falling all over the schoolyard. This guy right here, his name is Tony Engel. He sells State Farm Insurance in Greensboro, North Carolina. Matter of fact, I thought about changing and making him my agent. But he's a nice guy. He remembers it. So does H.D. Lambeth. He remembers it. So all the girls, I had trouble finding them because, you know, of course, surnames. They got married. But let's see. Here's what happened with that angel hair. Civil defense got involved. They came out, or one guy came out, and I actually found the guy that wrote this, the staff writer, Guy Munger. He lives in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he remembered this vividly. He says he went out to the schoolhouse. He remembers the civil defense guy was there when he was. He was out there interviewing H.D. Lambeth. But here's what's interesting about angel hair. They don't know what to do with it sometimes. They play animal, vegetable, or mineral. Here's a classic example. Here's an excerpt from this. And it's what they say. A fiber technician examined it and said it was not cotton wool or any commercial synthetic yarn. He suggested it might be spider webs or similar material. But then a Greensboro biologist said it was unlikely it was spider web. There you go. And that's happened over and over and over again. Matter of fact, I must have about a dozen cases where they couldn't identify it. Oh, this is another good case. Kemah, Texas. Blue Book file, Blue Book case, and here they really had trouble figuring out what to do with it because there were a lot of witnesses. It was seen by a lot of people over Kemah, which, by the way, it's on the Galveston Bay, and I've been down there. They got a really nice boardwalk area. But here it was spider web or unidentified. They didn't really know what to do with it. But, and it says also, again, physical specimen not received. She had sent them the stuff. It happened just like in Miss Lewis's case. You know, she sent the stuff to them, and they say, well, we don't have it. But I want to describe, let's see, I might as well put up her drawing of this. Let's see. Okay, first of all, this is just where they tell her here, what is that, June 30th, that it's radar chaff. Okay, I just want to show you, again, the disparity. They don't know what to do with this stuff. And then here, it's spider web, and this is on August 30th, I believe, Well, and they also tell her, I think it's, oh yeah, this is funny. They suggest that she read The World of Flying Saucers by Boyd and Menzel, and that would clear it up for her. I'm sure it would have. You guys don't know, they were really, total debunkers. But now here's her statement. She was coming back from the grocery store about 10 o'clock in the morning, and she said that she was driving, she saw long white streamers coming down out of the sky. They're falling on everything, hanging on telephone and electric lines, trees. Okay, here's where it gets good. Right over our heads, she was back home now. Right over our heads was a round machine. Okay, let me put this up. Okay, this is the whole page of her Blue Book report. Now, right there, let me just blow that up for you. Now, I'll describe what she said it looked like. Right over our heads was a round machine or whatever it was. It was about 50 feet wide, the most beautiful thing I ever saw. It glistened like a diamond. It looked like two round discs with an opening or windows around the center. It looked like it was pumping in an accordion fashion, and every time it pumped, it looked like sparkles were coming out that looked exactly like sparkles of a diamond. There was no noise, not a sound. Yet it was just over the top of the trees. We both stood and watched it until it went out of sight. It was the brightest aluminum I've ever seen, like the most shiny foil in sunlight. We were not imagining this, we did see it, and she underscored that 3 times. Okay, so that's a good case. Now, just to show you that, by the way, I'm doing these pretty much chronologically, we're going up in time here. Just to show you that this is not just a U.S. phenomenon. This happened in Australia. This was actually in the Blue Book files listed as info only, and it took a lot of tweaking to get this where it was even readable. I mean, it was so faded out it was almost unreadable. But just let me show you this right here. Let me blow that up. You can just read that. Now, this is classic. Crumble before it could be preserved. That happened, that has happened in many cases, and I'll get to that specifically in a minute. Let's see here. Okay, Farmington. Farmington, Utah. I think this is also a pretty good case because they actually listed this one as unidentified. And this is also, I know that's hard to read, but I'll read you what the witness wrote in his report, which was actually, I couldn't even, it took me a long time to actually make it out with a magnifying glass. Okay, actually, let's see, this is, okay, listed. It was probably due to, okay, this is actually the Blue Book report, not the witness report. At 1400 hours, 25 October 1962, a security specialist from Security and Law Enforcement Division, Hill Air Force Base, Utah, contacted Mr., and this one was blacked out. This was missing from the 16 millimeter, by the way. Let's see, okay, illegible. He was duck hunting in the Farmington Bay Refuge when he heard what sounded like a flock of ducks coming over his position. When he looked west from his blind, he noticed a gray and silver round ball 3 feet in diameter approaching him from the west at approximately the speed of a jet aircraft. The object was trailing what appeared to be a gray or silver twine or cobwebbing with 2 knots trailing behind the object. The object, after passing over the blind, swerved to the southeast and accelerated at a tremendous speed and disappeared within 1 or 2 seconds. So that was something moving pretty fast. Okay, now I'm going to get into some specifics. We've seen some cases now. I'm going to get into some more recent cases after I go over some of the data. Okay, here's a breakdown. I've now got, my database is about 270 cases. When I did this, I had about, this is about 2 years old or so, I had about 215. Now, you notice the big spike in October, and that right there has led a lot of people to say, it's got to be spider web from ballooning spiders, because what they do during October, and this does happen, They pay out, once they hatch, you know, there's a population pressure because there's just thousands of them in a small area. Well, they want to leave. So what they do is they climb up to the top of a blade of grass or something like that, and when there are convection currents that'll carry them upward, they pay out a line of silk and they float off. Well, and then what happens is when they land, they discard the web because they don't need it, and all this stuff supposedly masses up in a big wads of spider web, and that's what supposedly is angel hair. Well, I'm going to show you why it's not. There's a big problem with that theory, because not only do spiders migrate in October, they also migrate in April. So we got a little problem here. The reason for the October peak is because this data is a little bit skewed. The reason for that is because there was a huge, absolutely tremendous UFO angel hair wave in 1954 in Europe, in France and Italy. And that was probably 40 cases, I think, 36 to 40 cases. So that skews that, but I'll get to that in just a second. I'm going to talk about waves. Okay, here, these are the aggregate totals here. What you've got, sublimation and a UFO, that's your total there, angel hair only. Sublimation. Sublimation is reported in 40% of the cases. Angel hair plus a UFO being seen is 57%. And I think that that is underreported. And I'll tell you why. People don't look at the sky, but if they see stuff falling in their backyard, they'll go out and investigate it, but then by then the UFO's long gone. You know, I think they're, but I don't know what percentage that would be, you know. But still, 57%, even if we're missing, you know, a few percent there, it's still a large number. Okay, this is the breakdown of angel hair types. And it's interesting because what we have here are the classic types. Your disc or saucers, globes, or spheres, cigars, and others. And the others would include, like I mentioned, that Sonora, the red light, but they're generally reported as your typical silver, you know, like I said, Dr. Lambeth at Whitsett had reported them to look like steel ball bearings, but that's the breakdown on them. Now, angel hair waves. Okay, I know a lot of you guys are familiar with UFO waves, you know, the classic ones. You know, we had 47, 52, 54, 56, 66, and 67. Ted Phillips has a lot of data during those years, but we don't have much angel hair. It's odd because angel hair, it doesn't happen with every UFO wave. But you can't have a wave of angel hair unless it's in the midst of a UFO wave, if that makes any sense. In other words, you can have a UFO wave with no angel hair, but you can't have an angel hair wave without there being a concurrent UFO wave. Now, the big years for angel hair were 54, France and Italy. Like I mentioned, that's why the data is skewed in October, is because this is just a tremendous wave. Absolutely a ton of cases. Now, not only 54, France and Italy, but 73, South Central U.S. Now, it's interesting about that being October. That's another reason that the data is skewed toward October, is that wave right there. We had quite a few cases there, too. And it wasn't just South Central U.S. It also, there was a couple of cases in October that happened up in Massachusetts. Now, Eddie Bullard, what ties these two waves, the commonality between these two waves is that they're classic explosive short-term October waves. And Eddie Bullard had done work on that, and this is how he defines it. Let's see. For 2 weeks to perhaps 3 or 4 months, UFOs in the thousands appear in national and international skies, attract temporary media attention, then disappear once again. An explosive wave begins with a spectacular, well-publicized triggering event, builds up in a few days and spreads quickly over a widening area, peaks and then falls off rapidly, typically spanning about 3 weeks. And that's what we find. Now, during the 54 wave, This is just to show you, this is a typical case over Rome. That's an excerpt from that clipping I just showed you right there. This is typical. Saw fine cotton or wool particles falling from the sky and hanging on telephone wires. Same sort of phenomenon was reported the day before in Tuscany. Now, this is what I was just telling you guys about the correlation between angel hair waves and UFO waves. But the 54 and 73 waves correlate, angel hair waves correlate precisely with UFO waves. I'll show you. Okay, right here, what you have in magenta is actually the same as that right there, which that's just a copy out of a book that I got from CISU, which is Centro Italiano Study Ufologica. I believe I got that right. It's the Italian version of MUFON is what it is. And the folks are excellent to work with. They'll work with you over the internet. They've sent me a ton of documents gratis. I mean, it's unreal. But here's what you got. This is their data, their wave data. This is the October and November wave during 54. Starting there is the 1st of October, running to the end of November. This is the total wave. Now, what the blue is a combination of their angel hair case data and my case data. Now, look at this. They precisely correlate. 1973, here we go with the 73 wave. October, let's see, this was actually tremendous. Now, if you guys will remember the Hickson Parker abduction, it happened during the October wave in 73. And that goes back to Eddie Bullard. You know, that's what started the big media hype about UFOs and whatnot, but people were really seeing them. It wasn't just hype. Okay, well, not only that, but Ohio Governor John Gillian, or Gillian, witnessed a UFO with his wife. October 15th, Walter Cronkite on CBS reported it. Also, the South Central U.S. Was basically just covered with it. It hit Jackson, Mississippi, and the police department there received over 100 reports. So it was just all over the place. Now, Carl was talking about the coin case. You guys heard his talk. Well, I'll get to that in just a second, but I'm going to show you guys another slide or two first. Okay, notice the date here. October 18th, 1973. This happened in Hamilton. Let's see. No, I'm not out of order here. Okay, here it is. Hamilton, Illinois, at 3:30 p.m., the witnesses described this UFO discharging cobwebs, and that's what they've got down here drawn. It's this is kind of also, this has been reported quite a bit where they see it coming out of the top, but also out of the sides and bottom. It can come out of any part of the object. But I got a breakdown of this. Let's see, there we go. Check this out. Remember, October 18th. Melted as it was touched, completely disintegrated. That's in Illinois. Now, guess what else happened October 18th, that night? We had tremendous amounts of angel hair falling the day on the 18th, all over the central U.S. That night, the coin case happened, which I think is just one of the most tremendous cases. As a matter of fact, it's kind of funny. It won the National Enquirer Best Scientific Case of the Year, and I think a $5,000 prize for the crew of the helicopter. But Carl was right, what he said. They were cruising at 2,500 feet, and this cigar, just zipped right toward them, and he bottomed out the collective. And if you know about helicopters, when you do that, you actually put the rotor blades in a negative angle of attack. You should actually drive the helicopter into the ground. But this object actually literally sucked them up in altitude. It was just an amazing event. The ADF, or the magnetic compass, had to be replaced. Not only were all 4 crew members see the UFO, but there were also witnesses on the ground that saw it. High quality case. But again, my emphasis is that this happened the night of all that angel hair happening during the day. So I thought that was interesting. Now, just a few days later, Sudbury, Mass. This was on the 22nd. The witness was June Margolin at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. She says, I looked up and I noticed sort of a globe, a ball-shaped, shiny object in the sky. I tried to figure out what that was. I thought it doesn't look like a plane. I noticed other than this, just directly over me, floating down, there were spider webs or cobwebs. Some landed in the yard. Some of them I picked up. Her neighbor, David Del Porto, said, I observed a material which appeared to be long strands of webbing falling from the sky and spewing spiderweb-like stuff all over the lawn, bushes, trees, etc. Each individual strand was about the thickness of a human hair and reached a maximum length of 8 to 15 feet and was milky white in color. Now, a NICAP investigator named, I think his name was Valentish, let's see, did a sketch. He looked at this stuff under a microscope and drew this. Charles Valentine, I'm sorry. This is at 300x. Now here's his human hair. Now here's the angel hair that he saw under a microscope. And I'm going to show you guys some real scanning electron microscope photographs in just a second, but he was right on the money. Angel hair can have very, very small fibrils. I mean, just absolutely dinky. This fell in Vercelli, Italy on November 8th, 1999. Huge quantities were retrieved, and I believe this is at 10x. I'm not sure, but these are, of course, being from Italy, that's centimeters. Now, what's interesting is that 3 days later, there was a guy driving up I-5 north of Sacramento named Tom Brewer. Oh, that's more Vercelli stuff. So yet again, more Vercelli stuff. You notice the very small fibrils. I mean, it can be very, very fine. And actually, CISU, I believe they're the ones that did this. This is, I believe that's an SEM. Right there, that's 30, that right there indicates 30 microns. So you can see how small these fibrils are. They're really, really small. And I can't make out what the magnification was there, but they actually stepped it up. That's 2 microns. Okay, now if you imagine that being 2 microns, what diameter is that? That's got to be just unbelievably small. I mean, incredible. Okay, this is at 50,000x again. I just zip through these because I got some more. Okay, here's where I wanted to go to. 3 days after the Vercelli fall, Tom Brewer was driving up I-5 north of Sacramento on his way back to Anchorage, Alaska. Now, this guy, he's not into UFOs. He's not a UFO investigator or anything like that. But he had the foresight. He was so curious, he stopped, got out of his truck, took a camera, and what he did, he put, that's a cassette tape case and an ink pen. He put it there for size reference and took photographs of this stuff and collected some samples. People all the time, you know, that's what we need is good samples. And I get calls and emails all the time from people that say, well, you know, I saw that stuff fall in my yard, and I asked them, well, did you get a sample? No. You know, it's just too bad. But this is Phyllis Budinger's photograph here. If you guys were here last year, you know who she is. She's done analysis now on 5 separate angel hair cases. I'm going to show you her conclusions on this case in just a second. But again, notice these are her arrows indicating the small fibrils. Let's see. Now this is her photograph of the Brewer sample we were just looking at. And again, this is 300 nanometers. That's the nanometer bar right there. But look, compare it to the Vercelli stuff. It's the same bundled strands. Now, I'm going to show you a comparison with spiderweb in just a second. But let's zoom in a little bit here. That's again 300 nanometers. That's spiderweb, folks. Oop. There we go. This is spiderweb. Now compare that to that. See how clean that is? Okay. And Phyllis Budinger again, I get her name mixed up all the time, but it's Budinger, did this 10 microns, 300 nanometers. That's spiderweb, and of course at the top you can compare the two right there. Okay. Here's her analysis. Now, what's interesting about the constituents there, I talked to a biochemist at North Carolina State University, and just basically kind of white lied to him. I told him this weird stuff had fallen in my yard, and a friend of mine had analyzed it, and we were curious what he thought about it. And I read this to him over the phone, and he says, well, carbonyl sulfide, that has nothing to do with spiders. It has nothing to do with flora or fauna. You know, it has also got the hydrocarbons in it. You know, so we know it's not spiderweb. Spiderweb is a polypeptide protein. It's one of the strongest natural fibers that we know of. It's as a matter of fact, it's 5 times stronger than a steel thread of the same diameter. It's also more elastic. Now, let's do collection and storage, just in case you guys ever come across this. Okay, the first thing you want to do, if you see UFOs, yell and scream, get other people to see it, you know, look for yourself, see if there's anything else. You look around, see if there's any angel hair falling, you know, that sort of thing. Okay, you want to store it as airtight as you possibly can, and it's important. Say you put it in a jar or something, even a Ziploc bag, if that's the best you can do, just make sure it's sealed up tight. It'd be preferable to have it in a container with like a rubber stopper, or you know, a mason jar with a good seal or something, because if it does sublimate, we can do gas chromatography on it and get an analysis that way. So you want to make sure it's airtight as possible, and also as cold as possible, because what will stop or slow down the sublimation of it is either adding pressure or lowering the temperature. So I tell people if they do, I mean, this stuff is rare, folks. I mean, chances are you'll never see it. I've never seen a fall of it, but if it ever does happen, and you're out on the highway somewhere, get a bag of ice at a convenience store and just shove it in the middle of it, you know. Okay, just if you have a camera, take pictures, get witness names, you know, the typical stuff you would generally do during a UFO encounter or sighting. And then definitely call me. Let me know about it. I want to know about it. Now, I'm going to show you a piece of videotape. After Tom Brewer sent me his sample, before I sent it to Phyllis, I took a piece of videotape. It's about 2 minutes and 40 seconds. So I can actually get a drink of water. That shows you the sample I got from him and being bottled up. So we can go ahead and run the video.
And macroscopically, it shows the fine strands that the microphotos show.
How much time? You know how much time I've got left? How much time I've got left? Total? Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Now I want you to notice the static electricity on this stuff. And also notice, it's really snow white stuff. It's if you try to do an experiment and collect some spider web in your yard, it'll turn dusty and dirty and gray in just a matter of minutes.
It's very odd. This strand here does not seem to have an affinity for the glass. Wow. It's very interesting. As an aggregate, it seems to be drawn toward a non-conductor such as the glass or my gloves, while this particular one strand seems to be an opposite pole. It's repelled. Let's cork this stuff up.
Those are the best things to use, folks. Those test tubes, you can get them at there's actually, if you can find them out of date at a medical supply company, they'll give them to you. I got like a whole box of them, full of about 100 of them. Okay.
Everybody at the site.
Oh, can we cut the video, please? Okay, I'm going to talk to you now. Okay, there we go. These are now some current cases. Real quickly, this was in USA Today. Fell August 10th, 1998. Incredible case. Witnesses included a ex-Air Force fighter pilot, his family, and a Telestra. Actually, Telestra is their phone company. He was a technician working in Pilloway, which was 40 kilometers from Quirindi. That's how that's pronounced, Quirindi. And what they saw was not only angel hair falling out of the sky, but UFOs playing games. They witnessed UFOs lining up in formations in a line, equally spaced, play leapfrog with each other. They also saw them hover, then take sharp right-angle turns, and they reported that as they did, this is when the angel hair would stream out. Whenever they would accelerate, just like in the Marysville case, when this thing shot off, that's when it left the angel hair. The second it went from hover to departing, poof, this stuff came out of it. And the same thing in Quirindi. Now, we also have a couple more recent cases in 2005, as a matter of fact. This is even more recent. This happened in Guilford, Vermont. Let's see. Okay, this is the guy's name. This was actually on UFO Roundup. A witness was David Schroeder. He says, I drove from Falmouth, Massachusetts, where I lived, to Richmond, New Hampshire. He says, with the naked eye, he observed strange flame-like filaments emanating from about 3 separate clouds. These were like nothing he'd ever seen before. But then he says that he, as he drove down, let's see, what was it? Toward Exeter, New Hampshire, 50 miles. It caught his attention. This stuff was just falling all over the place. And so I'm in the process now of trying to get in touch with him and get a sample of that. We also have another case that's still in work that happened October 14th, 2005 in northeastern Colorado. And there, the fellow, I'm not going to give his name because I think that he doesn't, he wants to remain anonymous for the time being. But he says on October 14th, 2005, I was traveling in northeastern Colorado on my way to Holyoke, Colorado. I guess that's how you say that. It was between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. As I recall, the sky was a little overcast and with a slight breeze. He says he was driving when he saw something floating across his headlights. He says, I couldn't tell what it was, but at times it looked wider than the front of the truck. I thought at first it might be corn husk or something blowing off a truck in front of me, but there were no trucks in sight. He says that on Road 29, I kept seeing the same thing, only now it was going much slower and the strands were longer. I stopped to see what this was, and directly in front of the truck with headlights was a very long strand of web material with clumps of white stuff on it. And he goes on to say that, again, he says, when I looked to see where it came from, it was hanging from a power line and stretched clear across the road. Now, we've heard that before. So, you know, this stuff is still going on, and I'm still in the process of collecting cases and getting this to Phyllis Budinger so she can analyze this stuff. You know, it's important. And just in closing, I might mention that, you know, well, first of all, let me give you guys some references that you might want to go check out. We'll go through these very quickly, and then I'll give you some references. Angel hair's been reported for over a millennium, you know. Just like UFOs, multiple high-quality witnesses report similar details, even though they don't know each other or widely separated. Witnesses consistently report sublimation. Well, 40% of 270 cases is quite a few cases. The huge areas that are covered, just like I just mentioned down in Corindi, Australia, it covered at least 40 kilometers. High static charge. The strange stuff that's in it. You know, it's found, I didn't go over a couple of cases that have had boron, the rare earth lanthanum, and well, tritium, I mentioned that. That's the Sonora case, had H3 tritium in it. And of course, the carbonyl sulfide in the Brewer sample. And the correlation between UFO waves, 1954 and 73. I mean, to me, the most impressive thing is UFOs are reported in 57% of the cases. So, you know, we definitely have a connection here with UFOs. You know, there's no question about it. Now I'll give you my some references you can go to. On the internet, there's a synopsis about everything I've presented today that's in this that was published by CUFOS and IUR. And there's a link to that on my website, which is that simple. And also, if you go back and dig out your MUFON journals, find the February 2005 one. This is a interview that I did with Tracy Austin Peters, and it's right there, the transcript of it. And in closing, I'd just like to say that for science to study something, you know, we use the scientific method, and for something to be studied with the scientific method, it has to be repeated or repeatable. And even though angel hair is rare, it does repeat, it will happen again. And so I think that we possibly have something that science could look at that may be a smoking gun. It may well be evidence that UFOs are real and they are not ours. I thank you very much for your attention. Okay. I'm sure we're going to have some questions. Oops. Okay.
Brian, is this thing on?
I don't
Hello,
know.
hello? I don't think so.
Yeah,
Oh, well.
you guys got the Q&A mic on? Okay.
There it is.
Yeah.
Have there, or I guess in the past, have there been any studies, or is there plans to have any studies, people who've actually touched this to see if it has any long-term health benefit or creates any long-term health issues?
No, as far as I know, I'm the only person in the United States that's studying this stuff. You know, I have no idea.
Thank you for the excellent report.
Thank you.
I have a comment and a question.
Sure.
About 8 or 10 years ago, I had a fall of this in my yard. At the time, it was, I believe it was a fall afternoon, about 3:30, clear blue sky. And we saw it coming down. The fibers were not quite as long as some of the ones you showed, but they were very much like the sample that you had in the plastic bag.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what it was. My kids were there. We thought it was spider silk.
Right.
My
right.
question for you is, does spider silk sublimate? Because this definitely did. You touched it, and it just disappeared on your fingers.
Then you touched the genuine thing. Spider web will not sublimate. It's polypeptide protein. It's a protein. There's amino acids in it. It's very strong, very tough stuff. And well, think about it. If spider web were to sublimate, spiders would go hungry.
That's right.
You know.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
I was kind of curious about the consistency or inconsistency of a couple of different things. One, does it always turn people's hands green or not? Does it always have the same chemicals in it or not? And does it always sublimate at the same temperatures?
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of reverb on that mic. The green stains, I've got 3 cases where that's happened. And the thing is, okay, I might want to emphasize that angel hair is not always one type of substance. You have your sublimating type, your non-sublimating type, the type that's strong and tough to break, and then sublimates. Now that right there is a weird property, if you ask me. And I'm sorry, your other part of the question I didn't...
Whether or not it's consistent in its chemical makeup. Is it consistent in its chemical makeup? Has different angel hair always tested to have the same chemicals, or is different angel hair actually having different chemical properties?
The consistency of the chemical makeup?
Yeah.
Well, you know, we have so few good recent analyses. The old chemical analysis only turned up elements, you know, like calcium, boron, silicon, that sort of thing. What Phyllis has done, she's used Fourier transform infrared analysis and mass spec, and that gives you a much more comprehensive idea of the constituents, but it doesn't really give you the percentages of each constituent. And having so few cases that she's done, it's really hard to tell you for sure how consistent the properties or the stuff that's in it is. So I really don't know.
And do you have any cases that are connected with airplane, aerosol type of chemtrail type of things?
Oh, the chemtrails.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that always comes up. I just mentioned about chemtrails. Chemtrails and angel hair, as far as I'm concerned, are 2 completely separate phenomena, because angel hair, as I showed you, goes way back, you know, years, decades, and actually centuries and centuries. Of course, that predates aviation. Now, I'm kind of agnostic on the chemtrails thing. I know that our government has done nefarious stuff in the past, and I don't put it past them to be trying something like this. But I specialize in angel hair, not chemtrails. A lot of the stuff that I've read on the internet about chemtrails is just, to be honest with you, it's rubbish. It's just my opinion, but I know aviation pretty well. I'm a private pilot. I've had a FAA A&P license for, 20 years now. Worked for a major airline for 15, so I know a little bit about aviation, and I haven't really personally seen any evidence of the chemtrail phenomena, but I can't say that it's not happening. I just haven't focused on it. Okay. Hello.
Is it ever sticky? Like, gooey,
Sticky.
like sticks to your hands, because I'm from the Sacramento area, which you said was where that large fall was.
Yes.
And we used to see it all the time, and we called it sky hooks when I was a kid. It would be hanging down, and it would have, you know, a gooey, like a gooey.
Okay, that's odd that you asked that, because I actually forgot to mention that during my talk. When this stuff sublimates, it sometimes will, before it just if it doesn't just vaporize, sometimes it will sublimate slowly and turn into a goo. You know, so it does have a transitional phase sometimes, and sometimes it just poof, it's gone in seconds.
Have you ever heard it called sky hooks?
No, I haven't. Sorry. Sure.
Hi there. I just want to make a comment that might simplify your life and some other people's life. But I'm from the Washington area with the Fund for UFO Research. And 10 years ago, William Whitsett stumbled into College Park there and found the full Blue Book files that were not blacked out. And so the fund paid for microfilm, you know, $6,000 later. And then we did have a group that scanned it all in, and it's partially OCR'd, but it's available on the web for people. And it's kind of a separate thing. I mean, the fund helped with it, but this guy's kind of taken it on his own. And I can't remember the exact website, but if you just put in, you know, Blue Book Archives and Fund for UFO Research, I'm sure you'll get the hit. And it's a very elegant website, and he does sell beautiful CDs with a full Blue Book. You don't have to go to College Park anymore, because he did a bang-up job on that.
Oh, thanks.
His name was William Wise. He did a great job, so check it out.
Well, actually, he's the one that told me about the 16 millimeter, and I didn't know it was on the internet. But I think I had gone up there and gotten these documents before they were on the internet anyway, so I probably didn't waste my money.
I think you might have to buy the CDs. I'm not really sure exactly how it works, but I know the prices are reasonable, and maybe you can get a portion of them. And I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what he's doing now, how he's packaging it, but it's a nice site. Can't remember the exact URL. Anyway.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi. Very interesting talk. Am I too close to this thing? Okay, great. Just a comment or two. The real angel hair and the spider web, I've watched this quite a number of times. Spider web is hanging down about 15 feet long with a little clump on the end, late September, October.
October, that's right.
And when they're coming over at a certain angle, you don't see the spider web or anything. In the same way as if you're going down a highway and the sun hits a power line at 90 degrees, you don't see the power line. Then suddenly, while you're watching, by the phenomena of diffraction and scattering, suddenly you see a silvery sphere about this big moving across the sky silently, and then when the angle changes, you see the entire spider web with a little ball on the end of it, either the spider or the clump. So you can see a UFO and a spider web angel hair, and the whole thing being spiders.
Well, I know what you're saying, because I've seen the same thing.
Right. I'm just pointing that out because I believe that there are extraterrestrial craft out there, but sometimes we misidentify things because we actually see. I've taken small insects, and you can turn them loose with the eave of the house and the sun at about this angle, videotape it. It's an insect, it's a bug going up, and boom, suddenly it's a silvery sphere.
Sure, exactly.
You know?
I mean, I've seen the same thing, and I know, but I think that most people have enough sense to recognize that versus a huge cigar overhead that's probably 60 feet long.
Yeah. Well, anyway, when you videotape those insects, they are good UFOs. They are silvery spheres going silently across the sky.
Okay.
By the way, I think the solution to the whole problem is that real UFOs are piloted by spiders.
Hi. I was wondering if you've ever been approached by a government agency or threatened by anybody since your research on angel hair?
One event happened after a research trip up to Narratu, College Park. The day after I got home, I received a phone call. It was very strange. It lasted about 30 seconds, and it was somebody saying, "Some people don't like what you're doing." That's the only thing that's ever happened. It was a voice I didn't recognize. That's all I can say. Looks like my time's up, folks. Yeah. Thank you.
you.